Hello and welcome to the CYC News for the 13th of September 2020 and the 3rd of Tawut 1737 AM. I'm Andre Botros. In today's headlines, Coptic New Year message from Prime Minister of Australia. The US sanctions former ministers allied to Hezbollah. Chinese state media accuse Australia of raiding journalists' homes. Hikers rescued as California wildfires rage. Giant library of Islamic State online propaganda discovered. Mystery of magnificent palace found in Jerusalem. Oxford University vaccine trial paused after participant falls ill. Gareth Southgate and England told to produce better to show more ambition. But first, staying in Australia, where Prime Minister Scott Morrison sent greetings to the Coptic Christian community as they celebrated the new start of the Coptic New Year, the Feast of El Nowruz, on September 11. Mr. Morrison, who was a long-standing friend of the community, spoke of El Nowruz being a time of renewal, hope and strength. In his message to the congregation, he said, "Your great church of more than 10 million adherents in countries all around the world has spread a message of love for almost 2,000 years. This message has sustained and inspired you in the face of great challenges. It is the strength of the purpose that makes the Coptic community so dear to me." The US has sanctioned two former Lebanese government ministers for allegedly providing materials to support Hezbollah and engaging in corruption. Youssef Fenayus and Ali Khalil were accused of ensuring contracts went to firms owned by Hezbollah, which the US considers as terrorist groups, and moving money to associated institutions. The move comes amid a Lebanese backlash against the government corruption following devastating explosion in Beirut on August 4th. Lebanon was already reeling from an economic crisis that had caused its currency to collapse, driven unemployment, and plunged many into poverty. The government resigned in the wake of the blast, and Western powers are demanding that its replacement implement reforms to unlock financial aid. In a statement, US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said, "For too long, Lebanon's political leaders have ignored their responsibility to address the needs of their people and instead built a political system that serves their private interests." It is alleged that two former ministers directed political and economic favors to Hezbollah, including ensuring group-owned companies won government contracts worth millions of dollars. The US stopped short of sanctioning any current government ministers. Returning to Australia now, where Chinese state media says agents raided the homes of Chinese journalists in June in the latest flare-up of tensions between the nations. The reports come a day after the two journalists working in China from Australian media flew home after a tense diplomatic standoff. Last Wednesday, two state mouthpieces said the Chinese reporter had been not asked to report the June incident. Australian police and intelligence agencies said they would not comment in the statement. The Australian Security Intelligence Agency said as long as it is standing practice, ASIO does not comment on the intelligence matters. The reported raids took place on an unspecified number of Chinese journalists' homes by Australian intelligence officers on June 26. State media outlets, the Global Times, citing an unnamed source, said the Chinese journalists were questioned and their computers and smartphones were seized. It is also cited anonymous experts are saying the incidents exposed Australia's hypocrisy in upholding so-called freedom of press. The raid allegations came a day after Bill Birdles from ABC and Mike Smith from the Australian Financial Review landed in Sydney after a 5-day diplomatic standoff. A record 17 foreign journalists have been expelled from China in the first half of 2020. Rescuers in California have been airlifting dozens of people trapped by a huge fire as crews continue to battle blazes across the state. An initial attempt to rescue the group, stranded by a mountain refugee for 2 nights, was initially abandoned on Monday because of smoke from the creek fire, but helicopters were able to land early on Tuesday to whisk the hikers to safety. Fires in California have burned through a record 2 million acres in recent weeks. In total, these blazes span an area larger than the US state of Delaware. On Tuesdays, California's Department of Forestry and Fire Protection issued a red flag warning for nearly the entire state, as well as parts of the neighboring states. The warning is meant to signal that the state is at maximum risk for fast-moving fires. California is currently experiencing a historic heat wave, with Los Angeles County reporting its highest ever temperature of 49.4 degrees Celsius last Sunday. More than 14,000 firefighters are battling 25 major blazes across the state. The creek fire is the largest one. It broke out in the Sierra Mountains, a major tourism spot northeast of Fresno, last Friday. One of the largest collections of online material belonging to the group calling itself Islamic State has been discovered by researchers at the Institute of Strategic Dialogue. The digital library contains more than 90,000 items and has estimated 10,000 unique visitors a month. Experts say it provides a way to continually replenish extremist content on the net, but taking it down is difficult because the data is not stored in one place. And despite counter-terrorism authorities in Britain and the US having been alerted to this growing repository, it continues to grow. The discovery came after the death of prominent IS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi on October 2019. At the same time, many social media posts supporting the organization contained a short link. It led researchers to documents and videos in 9 different languages. They included details of attacks, including those on the Manchester Arena in May 22, 2017, in London on July 7, 2005, and the US on September 11, 2001. Over to Israel now, where archaeologists have discovered what they say is evidence of a magnificent palace from the era of biblical Jewish kingdom in Jerusalem. Elaborately carved stone structures and other relics associated with such a building were found about 3 kilometers south of Jerusalem's Old City. The archaeologists say some of the artifacts have been neatly buried, although they do not know why. The palace is thought to have been built around the 8th or 7th century BC. Among remains unearthed were 3 ornate stone capital carvings, which adorned the top of columns, as well as items from lavish window frames. A statement from Israel Antiquities authorities said that the column capitals identified with royal construction of the First Temple period, 10th to 6th century BC, are the most beautiful and impressive that have been uncovered to date. The IAA, however, lived in the monumental structures would have had a breathtaking view of an area now known as the City of David, and of the Jewish temple of the Holy Plateau known as the Temple Mount. The occupants could have been one of the kings of Judah or the wealthy family of noblemen. The IAA suggested the carvings adorning the capitals were known visual symbols of the period of the kingdoms of Judah and Israel, and appear as one of the motifs on the 5 shekel coins of the modern state of Israel. To some health news now, and final clinical trials for a coronavirus vaccine developed by AstraZeneca and Oxford University have been put on hold after a participant has suspected adverse reaction in the UK. AstraZeneca described its routine pause in the case of unexplained illness. The outcome of the vaccine trials is being closely watched around the world. The AstraZeneca Oxford University vaccine is seen as a strong contender among dozens being developed globally. An Oxford University spokesman said in large trials, illnesses will happen by chance, but must be independently reviewed to check this carefully. The New York Times is reporting a volunteer in the UK trial has been diagnosed with transverse myelitis, an inflammatory syndrome that affects the spinal cord and can be caused by viral infections. However, the cause of the illness has not been confirmed, and an independent investigation will now work out if this has any link to the vaccine. Wellcome Trust Director Sir Jeremy Farrar, an expert in infectious disease control, said it is crucial that all data is shared openly and transparently because the public have absolute trust that these vaccines are safe and effective, and in the end will hopefully bring the pandemic to a close. A final decision on restarting the trial will be taken by the medical regulator, the MHRA, which could only take days. But until then, all international vaccine sites in the UK, Brazil, South Africa and the USA are on hold. And in sport, England manager Gareth Southgate will return from Copenhagen, having arguably learned more off the pitch than on it after the resumption of the Nations League. The scrambled late 1-0 win against Iceland, followed by a goalless draw in Copenhagen, will be overshadowed by Southgate sending Manchester City's Phil Foden and Manchester United striker Mason Greenwood home for breaking COVID-19 protocols in Reykjavik, coming in the wake of the withdrawal of Manchester United captain Harry Maguire, who has given a suspended prison sentence following an incident in Greece. The international break has been an eventful one in more ways than on the pitch. although Aston Villa captain Jack Grealish did not make his long-awaited England debut within 14 minutes to go against Denmark in Copenhagen. Southgate, with his players for the first time in almost a year because of the global coronavirus pandemic, can point to these results as a fact-finding mission during the pre-season, with players still lacking match sharpness. And that is all for CYC News today. A reminder that you can watch this news bulletin again throughout the week on YouTube. From the CYC studios in Sydney, Australia, I'm Andrew Botros, and see you next time.